This photo took me 3 months to finish. Let me explain. No, I didn't stand in the same spot taking photos in the night sky for 3 months straight. In fact, all of the photos that comprise this image were taken within a 20-minute span. So why did this photo take me so long?
See, astrophotography is not something I am particularly great at, and with this image, I really wanted to push myself. I planned everything out. I knew exactly what I wanted the photos to look like, how to take them, what settings to take, when to take them. And when I actually set out to go take the photos, everything turned out exactly as I expected. All of the actual photos turned out exactly as I wanted. But when I sat down to do the actual star stack, I quickly realized I didn't know what I was doing.
I spent hours watching YouTube tutorials, trying different things, changing settings, stacking the images over and over again, but it kept failing and never looked like what I wanted it to look like.
At the beginning of this process, I applied some basic color adjustments to the photos, and I got kind of attached to those adjustments. And as I was working through the photos, even though nothing that I tried really worked, nothing produced the image that I wanted in the end, I kept using those same original color adjustments.
Eventually, I gave up. I spent some time working on other projects, editing other photos, and otherwise forgot about this photo. But one day I had no projects to work on, so I opened up these pictures and erased all of the edits I made to it and completely started over. And to my surprise, within a couple of hours, I had this final photo. It looked exactly how I envisioned it in my head. It worked out the first time that I stacked it, and all I had to do was start over.
So why do we get stuck? Well, there's a multitude of reasons why we might get stuck on something, and this doesn't just have to apply to photography. It can apply to any number of tasks that we take on in life. Maybe you simply feel like you're not making progress. It's easy at the beginning of a project to understand where we are now, but it's not always easy to understand where we want to go. And that feeling of being stuck can really cause a lot of anxiety, especially if you're provided or if you've given yourself some kind of deadline. Those feelings of being stuck and not moving forward with the added pressure of deadlines can really make you spiral.
Basically, being stuck makes you feel stuck, which makes you even more stuck.
Or maybe you simply lack clarity.
I just mentioned a moment ago that it sometimes is easy to identify where you are now and where you want to be. But what if you simply don't know what that point B is? What if you don't know what your goal at the end of the day for this project is? There have been plenty of times in my life where I went out to take photos without really a goal in mind or an understanding of what I wanted the photo to look like. And when I sat down to actually edit the photos, or even when I was in the process of taking those photos, I simply felt uninspired and didn't think that anything would come out of it. Another reason why we get stuck can simply be put as life happens. Maybe you're in the middle of working on a photo, you have to go run to the store, you have to cook dinner, maybe you have to go to sleep and get up to work the next day, and by the time you're finished doing all of those things that you're obligated to do and have to do, when you get back to the task that you were previously working on, you've lost track of where you left off, you can't remember what you've done so far, and you don't really know what your inspiration was anymore.
Basically, you've lost concentration, and it might not even be your fault.
So now that you are stuck on something, what can you do to get over that feeling of being stuck?
Well, one thing that you can do is simply break it down into steps.
If you're feeling overwhelmed with the scope of something and the number of steps that it's going to take to finish it, break it down into manageable chunks. Try to focus on one of those chunks at a time. Don't worry about the rest of the steps. Pretend like those steps don't even exist. And once you finish the chunk at hand, then you can move on to the next one. All the while feeling a sense of accomplishment that you did indeed make progress.
Another thing you can do is ask yourself why. Why aren't you moving forward? And give yourself an answer to that question. You'd be surprised what you can uncover about yourself, about your motivations, if you simply take the time to ask yourself questions and give yourself answers. For example, if you ask yourself, why am I not moving forward? You might answer, I don't know what the next step is. And the next question you would ask yourself is, well, why don't you know that next step? Maybe your answer is, I never gave myself a clear direction in the first place. Well, the next logical question would be, what is the direction you should have given yourself in the first place? And once you answer that, you might have some follow-up questions and so on and so forth. But eventually, you'll get yourself an answer. And basically, you can repeat that process, whether it's actually writing those questions and answers down or just having it in your own internal dialogue until you have a better understanding of what it is that you need to move forward. This can be a great way to understand what your next steps are if you don't already know that.
The other thing you can do is simply take a step back.
The feeling of not moving forward can really cause a lot of anxiety and frustration. And especially if you're pushing up against the deadline, that frustration really builds on top of itself. And before you know it, you're in that spiral again. One of the best things that we can do when we're feeling stuck is to simply take a step back and calm those feelings.
Do something that you enjoy for a while. Worry about something else. Tackle another small task so you have that feeling of accomplishment. And then once you are back to a good baseline,
and once you feel calm again and you're no longer angry or frustrated, you can come back and tackle the next part of your project.
but here's the thing. What if none of those strategies work? What if you still feel stuck after you've done everything that we just talked about?
Well, sometimes all you can do is start over, and that's okay. Starting over can sometimes feel like you've given up or you've failed, and that's simply not true.
A lot of times the reason we feel that way is because we've already put in a bunch of effort into something and now we're stuck. So starting over feels like we've thrown away all of that previous effort.
And that makes us feel like we failed.
But there's an idea in economics called the sunk cost, which can oftentimes be applied to time and effort as well. Basically, a sunk cost is money that you've already spent and will not recover. For example, imagine a marketing company spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to develop a marketing campaign, only to realize that it's completely ineffective when they put it in front of a focus group.
But if they don't want to throw away all of the money and effort that they've already put into this campaign, they might decide to spend more ad dollars and push on with it. But it will never get them the results that they really want.
And now, that $100,000 that they've already spent quickly turns into a few $100,000, quickly turns into millions.
What would have been better is for them to accept that, yes, they did waste a bunch of money to develop a campaign that doesn't work. But now they can take the knowledge of what doesn't work and use that to help develop something that might.
And we can use this same idea when we get ourselves stuck on a project. But simply put, there's no point in continuing to work on a stuck project just so you don't lose what you've already worked on.
Especially because what you've already worked on has led you to this point, a point where you're stuck and aren't making any progress. Sometimes starting over will give you a new, fresh perspective.
You might have spent time on other projects, viewed other people's work, consumed content that might give you inspiration that you might not even know can apply to your stuck project. And then when you finally go back to restart it, you might have a completely new vision. And then that project will suddenly start falling into place, just like it did for me.
Now, it's entirely possible that my vision for what I wanted that photo to look like changed over the course of those 3 months. But that's perfectly fine, because the end result is that I have a completed image that I love and that I'm proud of. And at the end of the day, that's all that really matters.